Hey guys, welcome back to I'm Just a Fan. It's your host Ben, and today we are going to be talking about players that are going to be having their fantasy stock increasing after free agency. We're just going to go through a list of a few players. There's definitely some I forgot, but these are the guys that stood out to me the most, and let's get into it. First, I want to start with Ashton, Jeanty. Look, the Raiders go out and get Tyler Linderbaum, one of the best centers in the NFL currently. It's only going to help that offensive line. And look, we all know Jeanty was productive at times last year, but he also would have some duds. And I think getting one of the better centers in the league is only going to add to what Jeanty's going to do. Now, we'll see, of course, what happens with the RB2 position because they did end up getting Kubiak as their head coach, and he does value having a backup running back like we saw in Seattle with Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. So maybe Jeanty would have some touches taken away from him, but at the end of the day, this is only going to help Jeanty. And even then, with getting Kubiak, we see how much he emphasizes the run game and how much he can really do with that. And again, I only think that's only going to help Jeanty. So look, I don't see why you wouldn't invest in Jeanty last year. He showed that he can really, make something out of nothing at times with last year's team. And again, the team on paper should be better. There's a better head coach, at least play calling wise. I don't see why Jeanty's stock shouldn't rise heading into the 2026 fantasy season. Next, we're heading over to Indy, and we're actually talking about two players. We're talking about Alec Pierce, and we're talking about Tyler Warren. And the main reason why I have both these guys on this list is the fact that Michael Pittman has been traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's start with Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is now the clear-cut number one receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. And look, this is a guy that's already been doing really well with honestly a limited amount of catches. I mean, he hit 1,000 yards, I think, with only 50 or 53 catches or something like that. Again, his volume's only going to increase. It's a guy that's been getting better every single year. He also gets a ton of touchdowns. I don't see how this isn't just a clear positive for Alec Pierce. And really the same can be said about Tyler Warren. It's just one less target to worry about. Yes, him and Pierce will be in competition, but we still see this in most elite offenses. There's at least one or two players that are competing for targets. I think both these guys are just going to benefit from this move. The only concern I really have for either of them is Daniel Jones' health. Can Daniel Jones stay healthy? Again, do we want to see Phillip Rivers throwing footballs to these guys at the end of the year? Realistically, no. But look, if Dimes can stay healthy, I just see these guys' stocks increasing. I think, both of them are going to be hot commodities in fantasy drafts next year. So again, we'll see what happens, but I don't see why these guys both can't increase their stock. I just see the higher the volume is, the better, and that's the situation we have right now in Indianapolis. Now we're going to go over to Minnesota, and we're going to be talking about Justin Jefferson. This is very, 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 very simple, but it's because Kyler Murray is there. Look, I'm assuming that Kyler Murray is going to be starting for the Minnesota Vikings. Again, we'll see, for whatever reason, if I guess they go with McCarthy, but I don't see how Justin Jefferson doesn't have a better year as long as he and Murray stay healthy, because Murray's just going to be going to a better situation. He's going to be under a better offensive coach, and he's going to be having a way better receiver than he's really ever had. Yes, he had DeAndre Hopkins, but that was at the end of his career. Marvin Harrison's been somewhat of a disappointment. He hasn't had a ton to throw to. So you're getting, arguably the best receiver in the NFL, maybe at least a top 3 guy, depending on who you ask. I don't see why, Jefferson's stock shouldn't increase, because again, how many games last year were really any receiver for the Vikings just completely taken out of fantasy just because either McCarthy was stinking it up or, McCarthy's hurt and they got to go throw out, I forget what the kid's name was, but he's self-destructive versus the Seahawks when he played him. So I only see this as a positive for Justin Jefferson. I mean, you could really apply this, I guess, to, Addison as well, maybe even Hawkinson, but specifically for Jefferson, a guy that's a star, a guy that is known to make plays, I don't see how him and Murray don't develop some type of connection, and it's going to be better than what he had with McCarthy last year. Now we go over to Kansas City, and we're going to be talking about Kenneth Walker. Look, Kenneth Walker signs a 3-year deal with the Chiefs, and as of right now, he's going to be the clear-cut number 1 running back for the Chiefs. Looks like the Chiefs are trying to, kind of go back more towards prioritizing running backs. I mean, it's just something that they have not done the last couple years, and it's starting to really, catch up with them. I mean, the Chiefs have just not seen the success as much in the last couple years. And look, I know at times that Andy Reid isn't necessarily the best with running the football, but this is the number 1 guy. I mean, this is going to be the guy for the Chiefs, and I just think that he will do pretty solid in this system. Again, Kenneth Walker is at times inconsistent. I know people are still on a little bit of a high from the Super Bowl and the playoff run where he did do very well. I'm not taking any credit away from him. But before the playoff run, it really was just a consistency thing with Kenneth Walker. But I think he's going to be getting more touches in Kansas City. And also, now that he's out of that offense, there's just going to be less competition for him. Yes, the Chiefs still have a few running backs here and there that they like to trot out there. I mean, they're trotting out, Kareem Hunt at times last year. Yes, Pacheco left, but they do like to mix in some running backs here and there. But as we saw in Seattle, it really was a split backfield. It was Charbonnet and it was Walker. And how many touchdowns did Walker get stolen from him from the vulture Charbonnet? That's not going to be happening, hopefully, in theory, with the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't see how this doesn't benefit Kenneth Walker moving forward. Again, we'll see what happens and how the Chiefs actually use him. But from a pure volume standpoint, he should be getting more carries and he should be getting more touchdowns, more catches, more everything. This is a positive for Kenneth Walker. Let's head over to the Big Apple. We got Garrett Wilson, maybe a guy that you guys didn't expect to hear on this list. But I see this only as a positive for Garrett Wilson by getting Geno Smith. Yes, you can get your jokes out. Geno Smith is back with the Jets. But at the end of the day, I will still take Geno Smith, even after last year, over Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor. This is an actual NFL quarterback that can throw the football. It's not like Geno's arm declined last year. He just was really throwing so many interceptions and was honestly in a terrible system that had no real receivers other than Brock Bowers, who was also banged up. The offensive line was terrible. We all know what happened. And again, I'm not blaming or, I guess not putting any blame on Geno Smith. He still deserves some of the blame. I mean, some of the interceptions were just awful last year. But again, this is a guy that likes to sling the rock, a guy that likes to throw the football. And realistically, I could see the Jets being down in a majority of their games. So they're going to have to throw the football. And as long as Garrett Wilson stays healthy, he's going to be the clear-cut number one receiver for that team. I don't see how this isn't a match made in heaven for both of them, strictly from a fantasy standpoint. Again, I don't know how many wins they're going to really get from this move, but I don't see how this doesn't benefit Garrett Wilson. He's only getting a better quarterback than Justin Fields or Tyrod Taylor. So, look, I would definitely try to go for Garrett Wilson next year if you're looking to get him in the league. Again, obviously don't overdraft him, but this is a guy that I think is going to have a higher ceiling than in the 2025 season. Now let's go down south to Tennessee, and we're going to be talking about Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson goes down to the Titans, and as of right now, Wan'Dale Robinson is the clear number one receiver for the Titans. Yes, Calvin Ridley may come back, but he's going to be coming back off an injury, and he's already been declining. At this point, I see Robinson as the number one receiver, and if you were watching football last year, you saw that Cam Ward can throw the football. He can throw the football, and I think Wan'Dale Robinson and him are going to have a great connection. I think Wan'Dale's done a great job so far with the Giants, and I don't see why that wouldn't translate to the Titans. And also another positive is that Brian Daboll is the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. This is a guy that has been able to prove to Wan'Dale that he's been able to thrive in his system. So again, I don't see why this wouldn't translate to Tennessee. You arguably, well, I wouldn't say Cam Ward's better than Jackson Dart. I mean, they're both, I would say, on the same par, but you're still going to be playing with a competent quarterback. I think, again, he leaves New York, where Neighbors was at least playing some games. I just see this as a benefit for Wan'Dale Robinson. He's just going to get more volume. I think Ward's going to love him. He's familiar with Daboll's system. I just think this is going to be a plus for Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't see how, again, with an increased volume, that he does not do better next year in the 2026 season. Last is Etienne. Etienne heads over to the Saints, and there's many reasons I like this. Number one, I like what Kellen Moore has done with the running backs the last couple years. I mean, we saw what he did with Saquon Barkley. Obviously, completely different situation, different personnel, everything, but he still got the most out of Saquon Barkley. And even last year, I think is it Devin Neal or Devin? I forget what the Saints backup running back is. I feel like a clown for not looking it up before, but I feel like he showed some flashes under Kellen Moore's offense last year, and I don't see why that wouldn't translate again for Etienne. Etienne had a really, really good last year with the Jags. Really showed off why he's one of the, I wouldn't say an elite running back, but he's definitely one of the better running backs. I mean, you can rely on him in the run game, and you can rely on him in the receiving game. I mean, he was a threat in the receiving game, and again, this is the guy that's going to be getting a majority of the touches. He's definitely going to be over any running back that's already there, and specifically Alvin Kamara. I mean, Kamara is still signed, but you don't sign a guy for 4 years, $52 million to not have him be the number one running back. So I think Etienne's only going to be seeing more volume. And again, as well, as you compare this situation to Jacksonville, the last couple of years, Etienne's had a lot of his touches taken away by both Tanks Bigsby before Tanks Bigsby was traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, and last year also with Tootin. Tootin was stealing a couple carries here and there and was stealing a few touchdowns. So again, assuming everything shows us that Etienne is going to be the number one running back heading into the 2026 season for the Saints, I don't see why his fantasy value would not increase. That's all I have for this video. Let me know if I forgot any players. These are the guys that stood out to me. But if you like this video, feel free to give it a like. If you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. My TikTok will be in the description down below. And if you made this far in the video, I greatly, greatly appreciate you. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace, guys.